So I'm going to first invite Professor Kak to speak about the book and his share his thoughts with us. Professor Kak, of course, is very well known. I'm so honored. Professor Kak is a Padma Shri. He's the Regents Professor of Computer Science Department at Oklahoma State University at Stillwater. But most importantly at all, he has been working over many decades to turn this narrative to really tell the story of our civilization. And this is what really Garuda was started and founded for, which is how do we tell our own stories in our own words. And Professor Kak has been a pioneer much before us in saying, okay, this we've, so many of the narratives are distorted, and how do we present and bring the real wisdom of India and the truth about India to the world. So please welcome Professor Kak, and love to hear from him.
Thank you, Sankrant, and I'm very delighted to be a part of Bhaskar Kamble's book release, The Imperishable Seed. As Sankrant just said, we are living at a very critical moment of history, and we can see that not only in the last 2 or 3 years of the COVID hysteria and the response to it in different countries, and also the war. So this is the time when India, of course, is in PPP terms the third largest economy, and even in nominal dollar terms, it's the fifth largest economy, and probably going to be very soon the fourth. So this is the point. This is the point in time when we need to take stock and get free of the colonial mentality which has governed India's look at itself, India's gaze, if you will, at itself over the last 70 years, and assert itself in as truthful terms as is possible. And I think Bhaskar Kamble's book is a very element in that reassessment, in that process of speaking truth to power, if you will, because the power is still in the hands of those who've been acculturated into it over the past many years, and they don't know what the facts are. They hold on to what they believe is the truth, only because most of them, I would imagine, there are some who are ideologues or activists and who don't care. For them, their ideological warfare is more important than anything else. But a large number of people are honest people, and if they only knew what the facts were or what the facts are, and that's where I think Bhaskar's book is going to be so important. One of the challenges right now that we face in this world of social media and the internet is that bad information can flow as easily as good information. Perhaps bad information flows much better because it's assisted by established power centers or institutions who have a vested interest in the old story continuing on. And but now here is this great piece of work, and I am glad to have had a look at it when it was being written or after it was written, because Bhaskar was kind enough to send me an advance copy of the manuscript. And I think the Imperishable Seed is going to be extremely significant in changing the narrative, in people seeing the facts of what they are, because these facts, and many of them, are a part of this scholarly literature. You know, if you go back right to the 19th century and the 20th century, and now there's a whole series of articles which have appeared in the most reputed journals in the West as well as in India. And so scholars are aware, but sadly, the world of scholarship associated with history of Indian sciences is rather small numerically. So that even though people have been aware as to what the broad facts are, But the other question, of course, is the subtitle of the book, which is the erasure of this narrative. And that is a very complicated story, and I'll be glad to add some points to it later on. And that's the story of people in the West saying that they control the narrative. I can tell you on a personal note, in the late 1990s, when I was working on history of Indian astronomy and a lot of other stuff, and I had these friends from some of the leading universities, and many of them are still my friends, and many of them are very good people. But one particularly obnoxious professor at a university on the East Coast sent me an email. He says, "We decide what is right. We decide how India is to be interpreted." And this is a war which is, of course, much larger than just the history of Indian mathematics or Indian science, because for a host of very complicated reasons related also to Europe's own understanding of its own past, and the fact that their past, maybe it goes back 500 BCE or 1000 BCE, is so much younger than India's past. So that Europe, since it was dominant in the 19th or 20th centuries, wants to have the last word on how India's past is to be interpreted. So there are a whole set of elements, including racism, including rank stupidity, and all kind of stuff. And some of that coming out right now in the works of many people.